My name is James, and I work as an aerodynamic engineer. I was born in Germany where my parents were employed, and I spent my childhood on the streets of Munich. My mother was a painter, while my father worked as a real estate agent, and they amassed a fortune during their lifetime. As a result, I had a carefree childhood, growing up with all the luxuries that money could buy. My parents had invested in property and commercial plots, which contributed to their wealth, and I was fortunate enough to be born into a life of privilege. After completing my education at one of the most prestigious and costly schools, I followed my passion for business and pursued management studies to enter the world of real estate. My father's wealth and renowned name allowed me to inherit a fortune, paving the way to become a successful real estate tycoon. In no time, I amassed a vast fortune and gained a reputation in the industry. Living a lavish bachelor's life, I enjoyed parties on my yacht and indulged in golf at my villas. Despite my extravagant lifestyle, I spent my money without a care and never seemed to run out of funds. My weekends were spent traveling to open Europe visas on my private jet, visiting destinations like Rome, Paris, and Milan on a whim. I particularly enjoyed dining at Hillview in Italy, where the Moroccan stew and Turkish delight were some of my favorite dishes. Fortune always seemed to favor me whenever I gambled, and my victories were plenty. Despite my time spent in casinos, my drinking and cigar habits were controlled, never allowing them to interfere with my business. My villa was my dream home, which I purchased and renovated to my liking. My collection of exotic cars was impressive, with any model you could think of parked in my garage. My life was full of blessings, and every weekend I hosted lavish parties at my villa. Relaxing on my yacht was a sight to behold, with friends and girls from nearby areas joining me for drinks. The elite class of Cubano and French tycoons would also be in attendance, where we'd discuss business, life, and sip on drinks. Despite entering the world of gambling, I never suffered any significant losses, instead winning the biggest bets of the night. I still reminisce about purchasing my first dream car, a Lamborghini from Italy, during my visit to Milan to buy property. I would gaze at the beautiful car in front of me, feeling proud of my accomplishment. Upon seeing someone else drive it, I couldn't help but wonder how I would look behind the wheel of that car in my hometown of Munich. I headed straight to the dealership and inquired about the price and available colors. The red-colored car caught my eye, and without hesitation I purchased it. Taking it for a test drive, I relished in its roar, a true beast of Italian origin. I imported the car by shipping it to my hometown in Germany, eagerly awaiting its arrival. The day it finally arrived, I took it out for a spin on the roads of Munich, feeling overjoyed. My newfound passion for collecting cars led me to acquire many other sports cars. In addition to building my car collection, I also started a shipping company that grew substantially in a few years. Though I had everything I could ever want, my desire to expand my wealth empire kept tempting me to acquire more. Nonetheless, I also found fulfillment in giving back to society, raising millions for charity, and opening a foundation for orphans and those in need throughout Germany. No matter what I tried, my money refused to part ways with me and continued to multiply daily. I reminisced about my leisurely days spent on a yacht, drifting along the shores of the Mediterranean Sea while attending to my business calls. Discovering that almost every aspect of my business could be managed via telephone, I decided to operate remotely and relish my free time. Although I had every material possession one could desire, the one thing missing from my life was a special someone to share it with and build a future together. After spending a significant amount of time as a bachelor, I began to long for the deep connection and companionship that true love brings into one's life. Despite my desire, I had not yet encountered that special someone who would make my heart skip a beat. When I learned that one of my former classmates was tying the knot, I extended an invitation to my villa and asked him to share his love story with me. As he recounted the tale of his simple yet beautiful journey to finding true love, I couldn't help but feel envious, as I had yet to find my own soulmate. He graciously invited me to attend his wedding, which was to take place in Spain at the end of the following month. His fiancée was a German expat working in Spain, and they had met and fallen in love before deciding to take the plunge into marriage. With my trip to Spain already on the horizon, I made the decision to depart a bit earlier in order to finalize my business matters and attend my friend's wedding. Upon my arrival in Madrid the following evening, I checked into the hotel that I had previously booked. Craving some fresh air, I decided to venture outside and arranged to meet with a client whom I was hoping to sell a flat to at an open-air restaurant. Determined not to be tardy for our professional meeting, I arrived early and awaited my client's arrival. Once he arrived, we delved into discussions surrounding our business deal. As we sipped our coffee, my gaze wandered to the far left corner of the restaurant, where I spotted a stunning young woman engrossed in her laptop. Though it appeared she was studying something intently, I couldn't help but be captivated by her beauty. There was something about her that drew my attention away from my business deal, and I found myself staring at her with a smile on my face. To my surprise, she suddenly paused her work and met my gaze, returning my smile. I was smitten by her lovely hands and the enchanting smile she had just bestowed upon me. She was sweeter than the coffee I had been drinking, and my eyes were fixated only on her. After successfully closing the deal and selling the flat, I searched for her in the spot where she had been sitting, but she was nowhere to be found. It was apparent that she had left while I was occupied with the business deal. Determined to locate her, I approached the manager and requested access to the restaurant's camera footage. The manager agreed, and I eagerly reviewed the footage. Much to my surprise, the young woman captured on camera was a student at a fashion design school, as informed by the waiter. It became apparent that she was a regular customer at the restaurant, often occupying a quiet corner while sipping on coffee or a lime drink. With my heart set on meeting her, I decided to reserve the entire restaurant for the following week. Money had never been an obstacle for me, so I devised a plan to ensure that I would have the best chance of encountering her during her next visit. I instructed the manager to allow only her entry during her next visit, while barring all other patrons from entering. However, to my dismay, she did not arrive the following day, nor the 2 days after that. Concerned about my unusual behavior, the manager informed the restaurant owner, who promptly came to speak with me. As it turned out, the owner was a former client of mine who was planning to sell the restaurant as he was relocating to Alaska. I shared my story with him, and we ended up closing the deal then and there at the table where we sat. I signed the check and handed it over to the owner, who had the necessary documents in his office. After signing the papers, he passed them over to me, and I became the proud new owner of the restaurant where I had first laid eyes on the woman who had captured my heart. The following day, I eagerly awaited the opportunity to finally speak with her. As she entered the restaurant, dressed in a lovely frock and sandals and clutching her laptop, I instructed the waiter to serve her the finest coffee available. But when it came time for her to pay the bill, a problem arose. The waiter informed her that I had already settled her bill and gestured towards me. She rose from her seat and made her way over to me, taking a seat at the table opposite mine. Expressing her gratitude, she insisted that I need not have paid for her coffee. However, I insisted in return, and she then offered to pay for my coffee, to which I agreed. Our conversation lasted for hours as we talked about various topics. I learned that her name was Helen and she was a student. In turn, I introduced myself, and she was impressed by my wealth. We discovered a shared interest in sports cars, and I mentioned that I had recently purchased one in Madrid, where I also owned a house. I offered to give her a ride home, and she accepted. As we walked towards my car, I showed her my vehicle, and she was impressed. I dropped her off at her house, and we continued to meet up. One day, I asked her to be my date for a friend's wedding, and she accepted. I took her shopping and bought her a beautiful white dress for the occasion. On the day of the wedding, I picked her up and we drove to the venue. I introduced her to my friend and his wife. After the wedding, I informed her that I would be away for a few days, but before my departure, I wanted to take her out for a nice dinner. She agreed to the plan. I had been planning to propose to her for some time, and the evening of our dinner date finally arrived. I dressed myself in my finest suit and went to pick her up. She looked stunning in her beautiful dress. I had already purchased a gorgeous ring for her, and I was incredibly nervous. When the moment finally arrived, I got down on one knee and proposed to her. To my surprise, she said yes. I couldn't contain my joy, and my heart was overflowing with happiness. We shared the news with our families, and they were thrilled for us. We decided to get married the following month and began preparing for the big day. I was filled with excitement and anticipation for our wedding. I purchased a high-quality suit, an expensive watch, and fancy shoes for the occasion. She also bought a stunning dress for herself. My parents arrived, and soon the wedding day arrived. I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as the day approached. Thankfully, everything went smoothly and we were overjoyed. We planned our honeymoon in Thailand, and before departing, we met with all of our relatives. We flew to Thailand on my private jet, and upon arrival, we explored the bustling streets of Bangkok. As we strolled hand in hand, we took in all the sights around us and felt content with our life together. My wife was thrilled with the partner she had chosen, and I felt grateful for finding the love of my life. The day she became mine was truly one of the most blessed days of my life. We spent some time at the beach where I had reserved the entire resort. We sat on the beach chairs, gazing up at the sky. On the fourth day of our honeymoon, one of my friends happened to be in Thailand and asked to meet up. I met my friend at a restaurant, and we spent hours catching up, reminiscing about old times. After dinner, I returned to the resort and decided to surprise my wife with my return. When I arrived, she was in the shower. I hid in the wardrobe, eagerly waiting for her to come out. Suddenly, her phone rang and she came out of the shower to answer it. As I listened in, I was terrified and couldn't believe what I was hearing. To my horror, I overheard my wife speaking with her boyfriend. She confessed that she had only married me for my money and was still seeing him behind my back. She was plotting to take a large sum of my money and flee. I was in shock and couldn't believe what I was hearing. My initial reaction was to strangle her, but I was frozen in place. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, and what I saw next left me even more stunned. A man entered the room, and my wife embraced him. She revealed that they were planning to run away together and that she was waiting for her share of my money before doing so. It was then clear to me that her intention had been to rob me of my wealth all along. In that moment, it became crystal clear to me that my wife's true love and intentions lay elsewhere. I had uncovered her deceitful plan and caught her in the act. She was taken aback and couldn't believe what was happening. I emerged from the wardrobe and confronted them, slapping her in front of her boyfriend. However, he quickly fled the room, leaving me to lock the door behind him. The reality of what I had discovered about my wife was far from what I had hoped for our life together. It was a sad and painful realization. Tears streamed down my face as I broke down. She was crying as well, pleading for my forgiveness. However, all I could hear was my own heart telling me that I had been deceived and that she was not the person I thought she was. Despite my overwhelming emotions, I couldn't quite grasp what had happened or what to do next. In a fit of rage, I had locked her in the bathroom and confiscated her phone, leaving her with no means of communication. I knew that I needed to keep my emotions in check, but I couldn't shake the desire for revenge. The pain she had caused me was indescribable, and I wanted her to feel even a fraction of it. The idea came to me in a flash of anger. With my heart still aching, I pulled out my phone and began recording. I demanded that she confess to what she had done. I had already taken pictures and videos of the evidence, and now she admitted to it all on camera. I made her promise that she would not ask for anything from my property in the event of a divorce. She obediently followed my every command, carrying out my instructions without question. Without hesitation, I contacted my lawyer and instructed him to prepare the divorce papers and send them to me as soon as possible. The night passed with her locked up in the bathroom, and I found myself unable to sleep. The following morning, my lawyer sent the papers via email. I released her from the bathroom and presented her with a pen, asking her to sign the papers. She tearfully complied. I then requested that she transfer all of the money in her accounts that I had given her. I had complete control over her actions, and she did everything I asked of her without question. I demanded that she relinquish her mansions and wealth, and she obediently signed over all of the property papers. She stood before me, frozen in shock, much like I had been when I first saw them together. I promptly locked her back in the bathroom and contacted my banks to freeze all of her accounts and render her debit and credit cards useless. Seeking revenge, I instructed my lawyer to file a case against her husband for attempted robbery. I wanted her to suffer the consequences of her actions. The bank contacted me for verification and promptly blocked all of her cards and accounts. With all of her accounts frozen, she was now trapped in the country. I seized her passport and began packing my bags, preparing to leave. After unlocking her from the bathroom, I sternly warned her never to try to contact me or show her face again. My anger and sadness overwhelmed me, and tears streamed down my face as I packed my bags and left her crying in the room. I took all of her SIM cards, credit and debit cards, checkbooks, cash, and her passport with me. I abandoned her in that place, hoping that she would understand the gravity of her actions. She had committed a heinous crime by toying with another person's emotions, and I could never forgive her. In an effort to ease my own pain, I contacted both sets of parents and shared the pictures and videos with them, laying bare the entire situation. This brought me some sense of relief, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal and the need for revenge. I never stopped to consider the consequences of my actions towards her. I was the only one who mattered, and I felt a sense of satisfaction in what I had done. She had brought this upon herself and fully deserved the consequences. In this way, I took my revenge against my wife, who had cheated and betrayed me.